Guys, I'm gonna catch with the Hyperloops. So I can't recall if the last video was public or Patreon exclusive. So I'll just kind of go on a rant. So the season's pretty much non-existent over here in the U.S. We just finished off, nationals and NA champs, which were separated by about 2 to 3 weeks. 3 weeks, I believe. Belgian nationals just finished, and Hondo Yoda won. So that's cool. The meta is in an interesting place. So there's a bunch of different, quote unquote viable decks. And now the thing here is that, sure, pretty much all of them have blue and some form of Yoda, Snoke, or Towson in them. So it's for some people they're like, well, I can't play anything I want, and it's just like, well, you can never play anything you wanted in any game at the top tier competitive levels anyways. So kind of hard to complain. We're just using, the best for what we got. But for the most part, we're looking at, all right, there's the crazy ramping of Yoda. There's the crazy damage or crazy ramping of Snoke. Some action cheating from CAD. And I think CAD right now is one of the only huge action cheating decks that can do it repetitively. The other decks are predicated on force speed and actually drawing or finding it. Or I guess if you run all-ins and whatnot. So but anyways, there's a bunch of, viable stuff. You can play a bunch of different decks. Villain is all over the place because of Snoke. Hero is here and there, but pretty much, based on Yoda or some form of Ray 2 or Luke. Or, Ayla, blah, blah, blah. But, that deck's few and far between. It's not seeing nearly as much play because it's the big consistent, thing from it is it's not nearly as big and consistent as it used to be. Or it still is, but the other decks can kind of just, explode past it right now. It still seems like a very good deck. Obi Maz seems like a great deck. So, I don't know. Try the stuff out, see how you like it. Kind of go from there. Obi Maz... when we were testing at the end of day 1, I'm sorry, heat 1, because I was playing heat 2. Dan was random guy as far as we were concerned, but he was there and we were hanging out, and I was like, yeah, do you want to play or whatever? And he was asking about what he should play. But Obi Maz was the only thing he had played for a while. He hadn't played for a while, so he was just like, oh, I'm just gonna play Obi Maz because it's what I know. And he was beating me in, man. We were both having rounds where we just really weren't getting damage in, and I wasn't able to really ramp or do what I wanted to do. So it was definitely very interesting. It could be a great answer for the Snoke based decks, because what's happening is that you're pretty reliably getting in there for 3 that first round, potentially 6. Don't try to go crazy and force down the whole weapon. But when you get the force speed going with the Maz, things change immensely, because if a vibro knife comes down, you could be looking at vibro knife and an ancient into an 8 unblockable situation, and Snoke just dies. That happened a couple times where he was ancient whatever rolls out, gets me with a 3, grabs a resource and a shield, and the next round he's vibro killing me with the speed. And not much I could really do there, besides preemptively try to mitigate a dead die or have force illusion down, because the decks just aren't really situated for it to respond fast, But so I definitely say check into that. Check into Cat Snoke if you're really upset with the slow Snoke vehicle decks. Those decks have the potential to just take him off the board round 2. And if he's off the board round 2, a lot of the decks attempt, can struggle right there. From that point, Bazine and Foss aren't so great after his death. Sienna and Sabalba are just oh my god, what's going on? So try it out, see how it goes. And but so like I guess what I want to talk about, and like I mentioned in the last thing, but if you have ideas for stuff you want to see us, write about or talk about, like just share it. So like I'm not sure how many people follow, like the whole like online thing, but essentially there's like kind of just think like radio. Like a lot of people listen to the radio or radio, host talk, but not many people call in. So I want you guys to essentially, quote unquote, call in, like leave comments, tell us what you want to see, so that we can, more adequately like get the content that you guys are looking for. Also, right now it's just like there's not much, motivation for us, and this is like we're kind of drained of ideas and what we're going with. So just share your thoughts, and never see what you'll never know what we what happens when we put pen to the paper. But like deck wise, I think we're kind of at a like, we're not at the end. Like there's definitely decks that could sprout up and be nut or butter. Them probably not including Snoke, Yoda, or Thousand, relatively low. But that's just from like a consistency standpoint. Like we could see old decks come back and like cause many problems for people. Wiper. But it's the odds of there being some unfound gem are always going to be low. Someone would have to struggle for quite a while usually, and test to try to get that thing going. And just like it's hard to reliably outdo anything against Snoke. If you're a relatively high fast damage deck, like it probably already existed. But in theory, there's always cards we could be running to kind of try to pull things back in your favor. If you can figure out some sort of, ramp engine, things like any red deck that has, with dug in, the 3 shields could go a long way. Kind of look back for the old, quote unquote busted cards that did like 1 for 3s. Like, Deflect came back, Feel Your Anger came back. Duggan, it always has the potential there. Pretty much nobody's running like Shield Hate because there's the hero decks aren't being like hugely played. Caution. I think an interesting deck could be, so if we go back to like old Rainbow 5s, we could either do it with Bala Night Sister Sienna or Bala Thousand Stormtrooper, and play the old gun-based version, with like 10 guns, like 2 DHs, 8 2-drops, and just try to, burn down a guy and get the untap with Bala and continue. I don't think decks are, well equipped to cope with that right now. There's a lot of like round 1, let your opponent kind of do what they want. Just make sure you don't, lose your guy. And if you get a bunch of dice out, they really don't get much of a choice in the matter. Sure, you'll weaken your Thousand ability, but I think that's perfectly fine and acceptable. In theory, if you go with Night Sister, you have you end up with the same amount of actual health, but your base damage sides are way decreased, so you run into problems with like doubt and whatnot. But her ability does mess with Snoke quite a bit, because if he just focuses a die to the side he wants, then you're just like, no, I'll take a damage, and we're not going to deal with you snoking that resource this round. So but like I think that could be a major contender comeback. Do not run the Bala JMac version. It's not that the deck's not solid. I think for the meta it was played in. It was quite capable. But in the current meta, you can't do that. If Bala ends up dying, you still need upgrades for your other guys to continue to try to win the game with. And his deck was not predicated on having actual upgrades that did damage. You really want to snowball off Bala and make people pain immensely for their 7 health sub characters. Like Bala getting a couple upgrades smash and stealing, killing a freaking battle droid, untap, and smashing straight into another guy is very good. Because like you could actually get a round 1 kill on a battle droid relatively easily. And like those decks are running like indirect, so like you could, you know, essentially keep Bala alive, and even like set up, you know, machine guns where you like smash Snoke, go to round 2. If you can't kill Snoke, kill the battle droid, untap, get what you could into Snoke. Okay, round 3, try to kill Snoke, and then like end Afra. And like that seems, you know, super reasonable. But we'll see where the deck lists from there go. I've also been kind of creating stuff and trying to think of like, hey, you know, is this the answer to everything? And this rain came out of nowhere, so apologies for the wipers. But for like Snoke-based answers, or just not necessarily not Snoke-based answers, but like just the answer in general to the format is going to be anything that just does explosive amounts of damage in a form of, you know, area of effect. Like we're hitting all 3 guys. So if you have force waves, you're in a great place. If you get like 2 blue guys and force wave, you're probably going to be in a solid slot. Deck I've been working on is single die Snoke, 2 die Towson, 1 die First Order Stormtrooper. And the theory there is that like you can get the ramp and then jam down a round 1 force wave and be able to use it. And I had a couple games in testing where I really didn't do much damage outside of throwing two force waves down and then just murdering everything. I like Snoked resources or cubed with resources, and then it was just like wave, smash you. Okay, next round, here's another wave, double smash you. But usually like 1 die I controlled. And then like the next round was just like double wave, like Jesus Christ, like oh my god. Because like there's not a lot of good single target removal. There's a lot of, you know, kind of questionable stuff. So people are running like deflex and whatnot. They can't feasibly answer force wave like at all. Sure, there's like feel your angers and stuff, but like those are all like what the heck's the word for? They're very particular. They're restrictive in the capability of when it can be played. So, but if you can reliably, you know, jam down a wave round 1, I think you're in a good spot. Hondo Yoda, I think, is, I don't know how great it is there. It's weird because like normally speaking against Hondo Yoda, the theory is to take damage round 1 and then start paying them off like round 2. I watched some of the stream and people are just paying him off round 1, trying to stop his damage and then kill him. But the dilemma is that like you're letting Yoda get, you know, loaded up. If they roll out Hondo first and then you pay them, you could be looking at a round 1 force wave getting used on you. So like you should really kind of refrain from allowing that, because if they roll out Hondo and you don't pay them, they don't really run 2 drops. They may have made adjustments to run like Ezra's lightsaber. I do know that they run cunning, but like it's not easy for them to mitigate you and, you know, cast a decent sized upgrade, because all of their removal costs like 1 and 2. Like Yoda has to get resources just to afford the removal. So if you pay them, then they can actually get, you know, the 3-drop upgrade down. But if not, then they can't really, and it makes it relatively hard on them. So I'm not sure. I guess someone explained the other day that like probably like 75 to 80% of the players for Destiny are actually just like kind of casual. Like we want to win, so like you play the top tier decks, but the people aren't going gung ho trying to, you know, win, or like they don't grind hard. They're not playing, you know, 3 hours a day of cards to try to make sure that they're prepared for nationals or, you know, whatever big event. So I guess we'll just, not much to say there as far as like seeing some questionable play on stream and whatnot, or just people not being very familiar with the best ways of dealing with certain decks. But if you really want to answer the meta, we'd be looking at decks that can try to use Force Wave round 1 or use and abuse Force Wave. So definitely look into that and see if you can come up with anything. Like in theory, you could always run, like, let's say Yoda Luke, run Force Wave, and if you grab the resource off of Yoda, flip the other one to a special, then you could jam the Force Wave on Luke, roll out Luke, do whatever damage, Yoda special into the special on Force Wave and use it, and get whatever additional damage. And then in the next round, you could roll out Luke, try to use the Force Wave, then shift the Force Wave to Yoda and try to kill them. And like, anytime you can do Force Wave like that, like I said, you're in a great spot. Like 3 wide does not want to be seeing 6 damage from a single die, especially not seeing it multiple times in a round. And then once it's on Yoda, it's just like the biggest pain, because you have to kill the die straight outright. Like, sure, it's only 33% to roll on its own, but once you start including Yoda specials, we're looking at a 70% chance to be able to resolve it after I rolled out. So it's 33, 33, and 33. So 33, and then the other 33 ends up being 22%. This brings it to 55, and then the next 33 ends up being 15%. So it brings us 70. Okay, so yeah, I don't know why. Yeah, 70. I said 70%. Okay. So yeah, 70% is very, very good. And once we re-roll, we're looking at like, so if we include that with the re-roll, with 91% chance of usage, yeah, you're gonna be in a great spot there. So I don't know. That could be a very strong deck. Just have to see what else you kind of base the deck around for something like that. But who knows? Maybe I'll have a deck list up with the theory on what you kind of want to do there going. It'd be interesting to see if you could, so like Makashi and Force Wave, I think Force Training might just be too low end, but like Force Training just seems great at times. It's because it's Yoda special-esque, but I guess it's only really good for ramping. We might be fine just ramping off of it. So like if you put it on Luke, you roll out, and now let's say you use any of the sides, you're looking at 1 damage, 2 damage, because we're adding it to Luke's damage, focus, resource, and the specials, resource and 1 damage. So we use it once, then shift it to Yoda, and then roll out and use it. And now if you end up deciding to Yoda chain off of it, you could just get your resources off of it and end with a single damage. It should be viable enough, and it gives you access to Force Misdirection. Like, that seems reasonable. Run those, Ancient Lightsabers, Ezra Saber. Probably no Shoto, just because we're trying to do the ability thing. Luke's, and then you could run the Luke's ability thing. Luke's Training, something like that. I forget what the hell it's called. That pulls the ability from the discard pile. So that could also set you up for round 1 Force Waves. Not really, like, realistically, if you do round 1 Force Wave onto Luke, you can't really use it, but I guess you could just use it once and then set up for the next round to use it twice. You could just get the 2 indirect also, and then shift it over and then use it, which might just be a better play, because then you're actually getting the 6 damage off. But I guess if you nutter butter into a resource plus the special, and you're what, 30% to hit the resource on Luke. Sounds reasonable enough. I don't know. I'll build a deck. We'll see what happens. But yeah, so I don't know. There's all sorts of stuff that you can definitely do. One of the things I would suggest if you're looking to kind of better yourself on like the analysis point is to break things down to kind of like a lower level of like what's going on, like what's the actual expectations from a card. So like we talk all the time like, oh, Force Wave's worth 6, but like it's not always worth 6. But in theory, if we have enough focus in the deck, in resource gen, or the ability to fix it, or Yoda chain special, like then we're reasonably calling it, an automatic. But if you're playing like Towson First Order Stormtrooper Bala, like you really can't call. I guess it's Towson you can technically call automatic. But like this, you're just playing some whatever other blue deck. No focus sides, no crazy ramp. Like your Force Wave's not going to be nearly as good. So it's Force Wave's a very particular card, in that you have to be capable of ramping decently well to be able to use it. You want to get it down relatively early. So like just try to like break down the cards to a like kind of bare minimum level, and always kind of compare cards to if some card seems amazingly great, you kind of want to look into what other cards it's similar to, or what other things are similar to it, and you can kind of gauge like a base power level. As you like compare things, you're just like, well, this other card just seems bad. What I mean by that is like, so like, just think of your removal. Like, if we have a 0-cost card that is just, your opponent re-rolls 1 die, like, how good is that versus something that's like Doubt or Hidden Motive? Because like Hidden Motive could just be like, alright, well, they re-rolled it and I picked the side, and if that side came up, it died. So like you can kind of compare like what's the better card in multiple scenarios, and if you can compare the different cards, then you can kind of start to understand like what things are looking at. Like we talk about it quite frequently, but we always pretty much say that 1 resource plus a card is worth 2 damage, whether it be like dealing 2 damage or stopping 2 damage, because we had stuff like lightsaber throw, scoping the target. There's restrictions on the dealing the damage part, but far less restrictions on the stopping damage part. And then like all the key grid cards end up being like the ones that can stop 3 damage or more off for 1 resource, or in theory deal 3 damage or more for 1 resource. And like that's why there's my overwhelming love for DH17, and it's just because on the +2 side, it's if you use that +2 side once, then like it's essentially already paid for itself, at least in comparison to any of the the events that would do it. So like that's kind of just what makes it so explosive. But I think doing stuff with Bala could be quite good. So I would definitely check into it. You could also potentially do so I guess if we went like the real damage route, we could go Elite Bala, Elite Snoke, and the Battle Droid. And the pretty much the sole reasoning for the Battle Droid is so we could have DH17 in the deck. Otherwise, what we would do is we would go Jawa, and we would go kind of yellow upgrades, but Jawa could roll out and show us the resource side, so we could ramp and jam like 2 weapons on Bala round 1. But as opposed to that, I think the theory I'd prefer to go with is probably just Battle Droid, because I want the DH17. Because it's a cheap thing for Bala to carry and go beat up people with, and then we can flip to max damage with Snoke, and Snoke damage with Battle Droid, like indirect range, whatever we want. If we hit the 2 focus, we should be in a really good spot damage wise. But Bala could very well end up being the answer, as well as Force Wave. One thing you could also do is if you play other games, and like this happens a lot of times. Like a lot of people who play one game, like this is like a whole a gaming community. Not like there's hardly ever anyone that's just like, oh no, this is my first game. This might be my first card game, but not my first game. So like the big thing there is like when you play, let's say like deck building games, you're buying specific cards because they tend to be stronger than other cards, or you need them, and you're gonna need them for specific scenarios. So like in deck building games, you remove cards from your own deck because you want to get rid of the weak cards while you had built up the strong cards. You want to get cards that like give you more actions and draw more cards. So like you kind of repeat that, over and over and over again. And it applies the same here in an actual card game, except like you'll have to have owned it and you pre-built the deck. So like, what are you looking for from things? What do you want your deck to do? Don't just start throwing a bunch of cards in the deck, because then you end up with kind of a pile of shit. In theory, sure, if you put all the amazing cards, you can end up with a good deck. But the odds are not there for that. So like, the big thing is that you want to understand and break things down to a more basic, easier level that is to kind of work with. So that's like the initial deck build, and then you're going to play for a while, and you're going to be like, alright, well, this is the feeling I got, over the course of the game a lot of the time. And it'll be like, alright, round one, I never wanted to see, these cards, but I wanted them for late game. Or I always wished I got this card, and it was great early, but then late game it was just terrible. So like, this way you can get like a rough understanding. It's like, all right, well then how many times did I get to the late game and it was just completely dead? How many times did it come early and it was just like a complete house? And like, one of the things you can think about there is like friends in low places. So if you have a deck with a yellow that's high priority target for the opponent, friends in low places is great for getting you through the first round or second round. But usually your yellow guy's probably dead after that point. So like friends in low places kind of falls off. But something like Mind Trick's really bad kind of round one, and then round two it's like but like round 3, 4, 5 it's like amazing. But how high priority is my blue guy? If my blue guy's going to be the one that's killed every game, he's going to die by round 3, then the Mind Tricks is going to be like an awful choice. If I've got 2 blue guys, then things change. If my blue guy is very rarely targeted as the first one, then Mind Trick could be that great card for you, assuming that it's doing the effect that you want. But in general, I've been playing some other games pretty much on my phone, and kind of pulling myself away from Destiny as a way of just kind of like getting, not a refresher, just think like when you go to sleep and you wake back up and then you got whatever stuff to do. But like, this one's more for ideas, because you'll go and you'll play other games, and you can apply these things to every other game in general. Maybe there's a deck strategy that we haven't actively been pursuing. So like, Snoke's all these slow decks that just build up and play a bunch of dice and kill my opponent over time. The aggro decks right now tend to be these ones on 4 speed that can quickly kill. Obi Maz, Cat Snoke, Dooku Townsend, even Kylo, Kylo Price, Kylo Snoke. So like, the aggro deck has definitely some room to try to make a comeback. The question is what are they potentially doing wrong? Are they trying to out long game the long game decks? Is that a bad idea? Should they just be going gung ho for the burst to take like Snoke out and slow the deck down with a couple cards maybe in case they reach the long game? That seems pretty reasonable. So who knows? We'll kind of see what's going on from there. But if you have ideas or stuff you want to see or hear from, just let us know. But I'd say if we're looking to answer the current meta, I think we're really looking at essentially Politique or Force Wave. Nothing else really does enough. Like, I guess if let's say you don't feel that it's an Afro meta, you could build Afro because Afro's very good. But the theory is that we're looking at Snoke Ramp or Snoke Afro or Afro something, Townsend something, and then like Yoda sprinkled in. But Yoda Honda just won, so can't really talk trash about Yoda, can we? But just think about it and like the different options, but I like the meta. There's enough stuff. You don't feel like you know every match you're gonna play against, but at the same time, we're not all out grinding, like I said, 4 hours a day trying to find the best deck to take down worlds. Other countries, you guys got nationals, so I definitely don't want to kind of slow down and be like, leave you guys hanging. I'll take a peek at that Yoda Luke deck, and hopefully when I get into work, I guess it's unfortunate if I really just don't want customers to show up, right? But if I don't get any customers, then I can put a deck together and give like a quick breakdown. But you guys have a great one. I'm Sketch with the Hyperloops, reporting out. Deuces.